adjournment.
Sounds like he really doesn't want to. Yeah, go sit down. I guess we'll talk about you then.
Maybe? Yeah. All right.
Hopefully it's like riding a bike for you.
Try it. We'll see.
Hey, Mark. Again, Mark.
Again,
You go please.
Julie? Okay, I would like to call to order our regular board meeting of August 20th at 6:00 p.m. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Guerin?
Here.
Mr. Gentry?
Here.
Mr. Quagliano?
Here.
Mrs. Melendi? Here. Mr. Troy?
Here.
Mrs. Mariano Scheiblein? Here. Mr. Craddy?
Here.
Okay. With that, I would like to make a motion to go into closed session for the matters outlined on the agenda. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Oh, I'm sorry, roll call.
It's a roll
Please.
call.
Yep.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mrs. Mariano Scheiblein? Yes. Mrs. Melendi? Yes. Mr. Craddy?
Yes.
Mr. Guerin?
Yes.
Mr. Gentry?
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Okay, we are in closed session.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you got it. Thanks, Paul.
Okay, Tony, I'll call you when we get back down.
Yep, no problem. All right.
Okay, set. Okay, we are back in open session at 7:01. Can I have roll call, please?
Mr. Guerin. Here. Mr. Gentry.
Here.
Mr. Quagliano.
Here.
Mrs. Melendi.
Here.
Mr. Troy.
Here.
Mrs. Maiorino.
Here.
Mr. Craddy.
Here.
Okay, we had no actions coming out of closed session, so next item up was the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could all please stand. Next on the agenda, we have item 5, public comment. Do we have any comments, sir? Okay. We'll give 2 more seconds for last call before we move on. Okay. Next up is revision and adoption of the agenda. Go through, Ms. Lombard, do you have a report? I'm sorry? Oh. Dr. Schlichter? Mr. Altmeyer? Dr. Zier? Dr. Bazitsky? Dr. Del Castillo? Wow. President's report, I didn't have anything. Tony, did you have anything on that?
No, I did not.
Okay. Legislation? No? Okay, with that.
You know, Mr. Gentry, I didn't see superintendent report on there, but I do have something.
I thought that was on there. Maybe not. We will add that.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda with the exception of items 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, and 15, and replacing item 15 with the superintendent's report. And a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So then that will move us to item 13, Community Relations and Student Outreach.
Thank
Mrs.
you.
Melendi?
Thank you. Item 13.1, the FOIA requests should be in your packet. Do you have anything further to add, Mr. Armstrong? Okay. Any questions?
I did have a question on that. One of the questions seemed to be on student rosters. Is that something that is, student rosters? Is that something that's protected info, or?
That's a standard request. We get that from our military recruiters every year. That's directory information. That's pretty standard. That's one of the categories that's encouraged to have ready under FOIA, actually, to present to folks. So no issue
Okay.
there.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, that's it for that. The only other thing I wanted to comment on under community relations and student outreach is, I know that we're starting school tomorrow, and no matter what side of the, argument you were on, whether you were for in or remote, we're remote learning. I know our teachers have been working extremely hard these past couple weeks to try to get everything ready. I know that it's a little chaotic, and I know that parents are feeling a little unsure with what they're doing tomorrow. I would encourage you not to put too much pressure on yourself or your children or your teachers. We're all trying to figure this out. I would just ask our community for some patience as we try to work through this, because it's uncharted territory for all of us. And so I just want to, one more plea, just to let's everybody take a breath and don't get too upset if your kid can't log on or if your student is not, able to engage right away. It'll be okay. So let's just take a breath and enjoy the fact that, we're even able to go to school at all.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Great, thank you. That will then move us to item 15, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Rowe.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Gentry. I have a few items just to update everyone on. Obviously, this being a big week, to follow up on what Mrs. Melendi said. We welcomed all staff back to schools on Monday. Remote learning instructional training has been the theme of the week. It was great to have everyone back in the buildings. Toured all of the buildings over the course of Monday and then into Wednesday in order to make my rounds and welcome as many people back in person as I could. But that remote learning instructional training was the theme. People getting their classrooms set up, getting organized with the appropriate technology, getting familiarizing themselves with the Otis platform at the elementary level primarily. So building the fun virtual classroom setting that so many are using. I've seen some even from my own kids in classroom settings where you're going in virtually to a classroom and then clicking different aspects in the classroom to connect to the Zoom or connect to the homework or the schedule to make it a little as fun and realistic instead of just a page worth of links. So I really appreciate the efforts that our teachers are taking to personalize this experience for our students. So it really was great. Now that buzz is still there, and I think that what you just said, Leslie, is really important. Even though we're starting remote tomorrow, the buzz of the new school year is still there. And I can tell you that just like every year, on the night before school, I won't sleep tonight, and I think most of our teachers won't sleep tonight because that's what we do the night before the first day of school. And a lot of our kids probably won't sleep real well tonight, and the excitement is there. Because there is that nervous energy, and people are excited to get back, and they're eager to see what this is going to be like. We are very, very excited to welcome our students tomorrow. If you're not an active member of Twitter, I suggest you and are interested in seeing some of the neat things that are going on, venture onto Twitter and follow some of our teachers. Some of our teachers are doing some amazing things online, and in that world. Especially at our high school, and I have to give a shout out to in particular Jerry Marchand, who started this, and it's really caught on at the high school, the Count Up Days, and they count down and have a group of teachers, and it has spread, and they started as a count up that every single day they literally count through day number 123 of the school year, and the whole point is you highlight something great that happened during your day that has to do with teaching or something that meaningful that happened with students. And it has not only impacted positively the culture of the high school, but it has caught on in other places outside of just the high school. And that's one example. Our teachers are capturing so many of the positive things that are going on in the classroom and in our schools, that especially in this environment, if we're looking for ways to stay connected beyond just what they send us, that may be a great way to do that and push ourselves to connect virtually to what's going on, because I have a feeling that Twitter and other social media platforms will be even more utilized as teachers are looking for ways to share the positives and even learn how they can grow their own personalized learning network as they look for ways to continue to improve their craft. I asked them in the back to school video that I did on Monday. The message that I delivered was that no one expects you to be an expert on Friday. No one expects you to be an expert the very first week on remote learning instruction. But we do expect you to get better each week. Bottom line, we need to have an always be improving mindset. And that's a great way to do that is connecting through, whether it be Twitter or just constantly reading, and to own your own professional learning. So that's what I'm asking of all of us, is that we always seek to be improving and find ways that we can just continue pushing ourselves to get better in this new world that we're living in. And engaging in conversations with educators around the country who are experiencing this exact same environment is a great way to do that, because not only do you not feel isolated, but you also can learn something from someone else's experience that can be really profound and impact your classroom immediately. I want to update you on some of our community child care options. We talked about this a little bit at our last board meeting, and we sent a survey out to families. And we highlighted, we're very grateful for our partnership with our local other local taxing bodies, but the Huntley Park District has a child daycare option that they have going. They've partnered with us on. We've given them a number of desks and helped them with some of their broadband, helping them beef up some of their internet options so that they can accommodate some of our students' learning needs. But then also, here just recently, we've been able to connect with our Boys and Girls Club partner, who provided some help with our Northwestern Medicine first responders last spring. And they're able to open a very small number of spaces that we're able to operate actually inside of our school at Chesauk. Only had 30 spots available. And the initial opening, we put that out just today and had a very, very positive response. Just in a matter of a couple of hours, it filled up. So they're looking for ways that they can expand that, and those community options continue to grow. We know it's late in the game, but we're doing everything that we can to continue offering whatever resources we have with any space that's available. It's a very small number of spaces in our schools because we need to provide only 10 students per classroom because of not only our standards but also Boys and Girls Club and the Illinois State Board of Education grant standards that they have to adhere to. But we're excited about both of those opportunities for families. Additional child care supports that I wanted to highlight, the parent survey that we sent out, we asked about where our parents were sending their children for some of their child care needs. And our hopes and our purpose for asking that specifically centered around if they were going to a center like the Park District or a Learning Tree or a Kinder Care or another center like that where a good number of our students were going, we want to partner with those facilities to help ensure that we can be a resource for them to help get our students on the learning platform while they're there, because it was loud and clear in the phone calls and emails that we received that our families are concerned about preserving their family time in the evening and not having to come home and spend 4 and 5 hours doing everything that they couldn't accomplish during the day. So we've been able to develop a one-pager of how-tos in terms of how to connect on Otis and how to connect on Zoom for our daycare centers. So that way, when a student comes in, regardless of what their schedule is, it guides the adults at the center how to help the student get on their Chromebook if they aren't sure how, or how to navigate whatever schedule they have, how to access any of their learning needs so that they can accomplish as much as they possibly can during the day to try our best and help do what we can so they can preserve that family time at night was one of the things we were hoping to accomplish. So, and we'll be reaching out to those child care centers tomorrow and first thing next week to try and ensure that that's a smooth process, and we want to remain a resource for them to be sure that they know they can call us and we can help be sure that they're able to provide the supports that they need. And then as I conclude, I just wanted to offer some thank yous while I have the floor here. This has been an interesting summer, to say the least. It's really since March. I mean, I think since March 13th was about 127 years ago, but this summer, to say the least, was like nothing we've ever experienced. And I just I want to personally thank I think our my district cabinet for the work and the hours and the long hours and weekends that they invested into both of our plans and to really getting things up off the ground. To all of our district administration, from our curriculum directors to our special education directors to food service. I mean, Richard Reed and his team of our cooks who served lunches and breakfast and lunch throughout the entire summer. We can't thank them enough for the service they provided to our community. To Mr. Nkasik and his operations and maintenance team, the trainings to cleaning the buildings and understanding this e-misting concept, and how the depth of knowledge and the specificity you've had to live under in order to get us ready to live in this environment, to be as sanitized as we are, to be ready for kids, and then shift to be ready for them whenever they return. It's so appreciated. And then our transportation directors and Laura Hooper and then Assistant Director Jen Heinrich, and what they're preparing to do to bring our small groups in a few weeks. And our Welcome Week students just next week from our ECC to 6th grade. We are extremely excited about that. But there's a lot of work that's gone on behind the scenes that never made it into any of our presentations and plans that you heard, that I want to just show some appreciation. But then our principals and their building administrative teams, from that are going on this week, to the handing out Chromebooks and the Good Eat Go bags. There's a lot of work that has been going on. Really, really proud of our team across the entire district. Our two unions, the teachers union and the support staff union, they've been wonderful partners through this. We haven't always agreed on everything, but we've collaborated, and that's the important thing. And that's what has not been lost through this entire process. To all of our District 158 employees, we're here, we're excited for kids, and I have a ton of faith. I trust the work that they're going to do for our students. I am confident in their abilities in the classroom, whether it be in person or virtually, that they are excellent educators and they're going to do amazing things. And I look forward to the growth that our students are going to show and the growth that our educators are going to experience over the course of this new instructional environment that we're going to live in. And then finally, and maybe most importantly, I want to thank the families of our school district and our community. I know this has been extremely hard on everyone this summer, and I know that not everyone is happy where we are. I don't want anyone to think that we're completely happy where we are, but we are here. And to echo Mrs. Melindy's comments from earlier, we're here, and we ask that you join us in giving our students a positive attitude in how we start the school year. But I want to thank you for the support that you're going to provide to your children, and I ask that you trust your teachers and continue to trust the school district, that we are here for your children and we're here for you, and we will be here for you when this pandemic ends and we welcome your children back into our buildings. I contend and will challenge anyone that we have the best school district in the state of Illinois. I'm extremely proud of it, and I can't wait for the day when things are back to normal. But until then, we are only going to be as strong as we are in how we work together, and that's the best way that we can work through this. So, appreciate the time.
Okay. Well, I can't follow that up, so I should just move along with the agenda. Little bit out of order here first, so what I'll do is I'll address item 17 on the consent agenda. Are there any items folks will want to pull from the consent agenda? Going once. Okay, with that, then I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda as outlined on the agenda. And a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Maiorino,
Yes.
Mr. Craddy,
Yes.
Mr. Troy,
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi, Mr. Guerin, Mr. Quagliano,
Yes.
Mr. Gentry.
Yes. Okay, next up is action items. Item 18.1, supplemental purchase orders and accounts payable. I will make a motion to approve those as requested on the agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any commentary? Okay. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Quagliano,
Yes.
Mr. Craddy, Mrs. Melendi, Mr. Guerin, Mr. Gentry,
Yes.
Mr. Troy,
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. On to 18.2, FY21 budget display draft. Mr. Altmeyer.
Thank you very much. Administration is pleased to present the display draft of the FY21 budget. As normal standard operating procedure, this budget needs to be on display 30 days before the budget hearing, which is scheduled for the September board meeting. As such, has been on display at the front desk here at district office since Monday. This draft of the budget remains in balance, which is the good news, and really reflects just changes with local, state, and federal revenues. So during the month, we were able to finalize transportation reimbursement. We were able to finalize the IDEA grant and numerous title grants, as well as bake into the budget the CARES money, the $184,000 that the district received. Specifically, itemizing those, the material modifications from the last draft of the budget, the third draft of the budget, we modified food services revenues, a reduction of food services revenues by approximately $500,000, or about a 20% reduction. And we did that as an estimate of, well, taking us out to approximately October 16th with remote, because unfortunately with students not in the buildings, we're going to see a revenue reduction there, as well as a reduction in the related food cost and other costs associated with food services. So we had an increase in, or a decrease in revenues of $500,000 and a decrease in expenses by the same amount. We were able to get an estimate from the state of Illinois for the CPPRT, and actually that added back $93,000 from our previous estimate. The previous estimate from the state had estimated a 25% reduction in that line item simply because of the economy and what we were hearing out of the state of Illinois. They revised their estimate and actually brought that up a little bit, so that is good news to the overall budget. We did finalize the transportation reimbursement during the month. That reflected a $133,000 decrease in transportation revenues, and that's being driven from when we complete the transportation reimbursement within the form and within the calculation of reimbursement. ISB estimates a proration percentage, and they used a proration percentage of, I don't want to get this wrong, to 81% for FY21, and that prorated percentage last year was 84.4%. That difference almost exactly approximates $140,000. So although we're decreasing that line item today within the month, if ISB does in fact finalize the overall transportation reimbursement, we may see that line item actually increase back up to the same prorated percentage it was in prior year. Not to be confused with hold harmless. When the state says they're going to hold us harmless, that does not necessarily mean they're going to hold us harmless on all the categorical dollars and the proration of those categorical dollars. Other revenue line items were, as I said earlier, the IDEA grant, title grants, and CARES Act, and all of those are increases in revenues as well as increases and or decreases in expenses by the same amount. So the overall impact to the overall budget, other than the $500,000 increase and decrease in revenue and expense for food services, was fairly immaterial. Within this draft of the budget, I also summarized, as what we did in draft 2 of the budget, we summarized the COVID adjustments kind of recognized year to date, and we broke those out between revenues and expenses. You'll see the chart within your memorandum. They include such things as an estimate, a decrease in new construction, an estimated decrease in impact fees, student registration fees decreasing as a result of free and reduced, and fee waivers increasing based on the economy. Rental fees have yet to be finalized and determined. That will be done in the next draft of the budget. A reduction in food services revenues, interest revenues, state funding from the state of Illinois. So the overall estimated decrease in revenues based on the economy as well as COVID and COVID impacting the economy is approximately a $1.5 million reduction in revenues. On the expense side, as we talked in the past, currently contract custodial, although there's a decrease in an increase in expense of contract custodial of $150,000. We have an increase in unemployment insurance of $50,000, a reduction of energy cost of $100,000, an increase in COVID supplies of $100,000, and technology supplies of $250,000, resulting in an overall increase of expense of $450,000, both totaling approximately a $2 million impact to the overall budget. Future adjustments, we are still waiting on final special education estimates. That might change private facilities as well as room and board. We will continue to look at the operation budget of the district related to this pandemic. It will also reflect, the final budget will also reflect some of the estimates and things that we're doing tonight at this board meeting. And then ultimately departmental allocations, working with whether it's operations and maintenance and transportations and the buildings, even some of our internal departments, to move dollars around as appropriate based on the needs that we are seeing today, especially in this environment. So there will be adjustments before we present the final budget in the middle of September. With that, we have operating revenues at $110.8 million, with operating expenditures of $110.7 million, with a balanced budget with an operating surplus of $115,000. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding the display draft of the budget.
Any questions? Just a quick clarification, the COVID impacts you're quoting are all within fiscal 21 numbers?
Correct.
Okay.
Some of the supplies did end up bleeding into the March through June timeframe, but the majority of the increases that you're seeing, especially here on the expense side, are all FY21.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's not any questions or other commentary, I'll make a motion to accept the FY21 display draft as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Gentry?
Yes.
Mr. Guerin? Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi?
Yes.
Mr. Craddy?
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Brings us to item 18.3, amendment number 2 to agreement between ABM Education and School District 158. Mr. Rinkasik.
Thank you. ABM and I have been working together since about April 1st on how to put together a plan to respond to the needs of the district with our requirements that have changed now for how we disinfect to meet the requirements of the IDPH and ISB. And there are special equipment and supplies that are required for that. I've tried to work with ABM best I could for us to buy a lot of the things directly with them as a resource, because in this environment we're in, a lot of the things like the disinfectant chemicals that are recognized on the EPA N list, which are what CDC recommends be used to kill the virus on contact, are not readily available to customers who already haven't been buying those kinds of products. And ABM Education, we're very fortunate. We're working with a contractor that is a very, very big book of work. And they had a large presence in the state of Illinois other than education a few years ago. That's why we really didn't hear about them before. But they are a great resource. But they are also going to experience added expenses for training their staff, personal protective equipment they need to wear if they have to respond to an incident in our school if we do have a case, and how to clean that up. They're prepared to do it, but they recognize there's extra equipment training, probably some requirements for health evaluations of employees and to work in that kind of environment with that personal protective equipment, and a lot of work to try to make acquisition to the products. And be very flexible to work with us. Right now, with our plan that we have, as I'm understanding it to date, to get us to when we revisit what the action plan is going to be in October, we don't realize that we're probably going to have to add staff. We're going to have to be, we've been very creative to reallocate some of the staff and change the working hours to meet the needs of the environment we're in, but the The nighttime housekeeping will be less. So there's a lot of management work going on in the background as well. So what they're asking for, they're here, is basically a document that does two things. Number one, it protects their liability unless they're grossly negligent, which is, we've had an attorney review. That's the most important thing to them, that they don't want to be liable for something that might happen unless they're negligent and not cleaning or disinfecting. And our attorney thinks that the language that's in this, mostly page 1 of the enhanced cleaning agreement, very fair, he said. And then there is a page in the back that references some costs. And at this point in time, for the first quarter, unless we have an event where we have to call in extra personnel, we're not looking at an expense for salaries, as you see in there. But there are, on the line item across the page, there are supply line items. And they're asking for a recognition of an 8% markup on their purchase at cost, which is very reasonable as compared to their bid that we received. If you may remember, if you were part of the board back then, when I presented the bid, they break down all the costs. We require them to do that, so you see how they build their costs for the project as a whole. And 8% is very reasonable for what's required here, I would feel and recommend. So we're just asking the board to acknowledge that and approve this amendment. It's really, at this point in time, if we don't have an event, it's not going to cost us that much. There is a train of special chemical that wasn't part of the original proposal that we've got quite a stockpile of, and are continuing to acquire more to make sure that we can do the proper disinfection in the evening with an unlisted chemical. And that's not part of their original contract, so that's coming in at cost plus 8% markup as this is proposed here. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions from board members? Okay. With that, I will make a motion to approve the amendment as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Guerin? Yes. Mrs. Maiorino? Yes. Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Mr. Craddy?
Yes.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mr. Gentry?
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi?
Okay, brings us to item 4, HESPA MOU. Dr. Zier.
Yeah, the HESPA MOU that's before you is the memorandum of understanding between the board and the support staff union. It outlines the upcoming furlough that will be taking place. And so the memorandum of understanding allows for some fluid openness as we do start to bring kids back into the building for certain positions, and we will act on the memorandum of understanding tonight, and then move forward with starting to communicate those that have been furloughed tomorrow.
Okay. We all had a chance to read through that. Is there any open questions that anyone might have? Comments or otherwise? Okay. With that, I will make a motion to approve the MOU as presented in item 4. Motion and a second. Can I have a roll call?
Mrs. Melendi? Yes. Mr. Gentry?
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino?
Yes.
Mr. Guerin?
Yes.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mr. Craddy?
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Brings us to item 5, lunch recess supervisor resolution. Dr. Zier.
So this resolution is to furlough all of the lunch recess supervisors in the district without students being in attendance at this time. That position primarily supervises students during lunch and recess, and since we will not be having lunch or recess in the buildings during the remote learning time, the recommendation is for the board to approve this resolution. Furlough will be communicated to those employees tomorrow, begins on Monday.
Okay, any questions? Not, I will make a motion to approve resolution at item 5 as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Can I have a roll call?
Mrs. Maiorino?
Yes.
Mr. Craddy?
Yes.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi? Yes. Mr. Guerin? Yes. Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Mr. Gentry.
Yes. Okay, motion passes, brings us to 18.6, benefit protection leave resolution. Dr. Zier again.
And the resolution of benefits protection leave allows the employees that pay into IMRF for retirement to not have a gap in service, essentially. So when they would return from furlough, they would be able to essentially buy back the credit that they missed while on furlough. So this resolution allows those employees to do that. There will be some specific steps and forms they have to fill out if they choose to do that. That's simply an option to help assist in those employees not losing any service credit through IMRF during the time of furlough.
Okay, any questions? Okay, I will make a motion to approve the benefits protection leave resolution as outlined and presented in item 6.
Second.
Motion and a second. Can I have a roll call?
Mr. Troy.
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi. Mr. Gentry.
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano.
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino.
Yes.
Mr. Guerin. Mr. Craddy.
Yes.
Okay. Brings us to item 18.7, College Board Contract. Dr. Schlichter.
Yes, so this is the time of year that we would typically be seeing our contract with the College Board, and in this unique year, what you're seeing different is we don't have all of the assessments listed on it. So we're really only looking to contract at this time for the PSAT and MSQT, which is the assessment that the juniors take typically in the fall, and it is what allows them to receive National Merit Scholar status. And so we are planning to give that in the fall, as we typically would, and that would be at our expense. We do have several other assessments that we would like and we hope to contract for in the spring, but we feel like it's more prudent. That's their normal timeline. It's more prudent, we think, to contract for those separately with College Board, just given the uncertainty of this year. So, as of right now, given that the state is still in phase 4, we're working with the high school to get those small groups in to be able to do the PSAT and MSQT on the date of October 14th. So this contract is for the amount shown, and it has been placed in the budget, and so we would be asking for approval of this contract at this time, knowing that hopefully we'll be in a position to contract for the remaining PSAT College Board suite closer to the spring. With that, I'll take any questions.
Okay. Any questions? Moving right along. So with that, I will make a motion to accept the contract as presented for the College Board. Motion and a second. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Guerin. Yes. Mrs. Maiorino.
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano. Mr. Quagliano.
Sorry, yes. Yes, I was muted.
Mr. Craddy.
Yes.
Mr. Troy.
Yes.
Mr. Gentry.
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi.
Okay, that brings us to item 19, public comment, version 2. Any comments out there?
No, sir.
Okay. And don't quite know how to approach this, but before adjourning, I mean, there's a few items here that sounded very, mechanical in terms of furloughs and such, and I know, definitely not easy times from that perspective, and there has been some great partnerships with our employee groups, and I just wanted to kind of put that out there that, those topics and actions are not fun, and we realize there is negative impacts to this terrible pandemic we're living through, and when it affects the employees, kind of hits the heart a little bit. So I just wanted to acknowledge that before moving past it. So with that, brings us to adjournment. I will make a motion to close the meeting here at 7:42 p.m. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. We're adjourned.
Mr. Gentry, thank you very much for picking up the slack tonight. I appreciate it very much.
No problem.